Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Anika Digital's webinar today, Friday, the 21st of October. And today you've got myself hosting, myself and Matt, digital strategist at Anika. And today I have Emil with me, who is one of our fantastic account directors from a paid social point of view. Morning, Emil.
Morning all.
And Emil's webinar today, I'm personally very excited about it. It's one of those things that a lot of people I think are going to get a lot of help from. It's Meta and LinkedIn ads time-saving tricks to boost your productivity. So I got some sneaky tips and tricks for us, haven't you, Emil?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of these can be applied to other platforms as well. So TikTok, Twitter, Pinterest, because they do all tend to sort of work on a quite similar blueprint. So even though I'm sort of I'm going to use examples from Meta and LinkedIn, you'll still be able to find a few of these options on the other platforms.
Yeah. I think we had a very quick chat at the start, didn't we? And theoretically, this is applicable to Google Ads as well in some instances. But yeah, it's about learning those tips and tricks, isn't it? So we've got a quick poll to start us off. So the poll, everyone should see it pop up on the screen in a second. But essentially, the question for today is: do you currently use Meta or LinkedIn ads? So very, very simple one this morning. But A is all the time. Are you are you a social media manager? Do you run paid ads for yourselves all the time? A little bit, and at an agency is B. C is a little bit, and you work in house, and then D is not at all right now, but I desperately need to learn some more. So straight away, we're seeing a lot of people saying all the time. So we've got 38% of people saying all the time. So tough audience today from the looks of it, Emil. And then we've got 9% of people who are saying a little bit at an agency, and then 31% of people saying a little bit and they work in-house, and then finally 20%. Those shifted around a little bit as I was reading them out. 19% now, not at all right now. So very, very mixed crowd today, actually. Should be, hopefully this is going to be exciting for people. Hopefully you're going to learn some exciting stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Emil, who is going to wow you with his time-saving tricks. And I'm going to disappear into the background, and
just leave your mic on for a second. Just let me know if you can see the presentation. Just one sec.
Do you want me to shout up if there's any questions, Emil, as we go along, or do you want me to save them all till the end?
Yeah, feel free to just shout as and when they come in if there's something relevant. Obviously, if you make a judgment on whether you think it's a better suited one to the end. Say, for example, if someone comes in with a completely different topic to what's actually being talked about. Can you see that presentation fine?
Yep, absolutely. For anyone that wants to see the presentation a little bit bigger, you should be able to hover over where you can see the image of the presentation, and there should be in the top right corner an expand button. You can make the presentation full screen. That sometimes helps, especially if you're on a laptop or something smaller. But yeah, I'll disappear now, Emil, and I'll leave it to you, sir.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so Matt's introduced what we'll be talking about all the slides already. So we'll be looking at Meta, which for the proper new beginners, that's sort of the umbrella company of LinkedIn and Facebook and WhatsApp, even though that's not something I'll be looking too much into today. An introduction to me, it's written in third person because usually someone else reads it out. But yes, I'm a paid media account director here at Anika. I specialize solely in the social media side, which in other words means I know nothing about PPC, but a lot about social media. I run ads across Meta, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, and TikTok. And just a completely irrelevant fact there, that I'm from Norway, and I've lived across the country for about 15 years now, hence the lack of accent. So that's sort of it in terms of intro. Got a few slides here about Annika. Yeah, I mean, usually Anne reads these out, so I'll just skip past them. Agenda. So I'll be looking at a few hacks and tricks that will help you setting up ads and campaigns more effectively. I know from experience it can be really time consuming and it can be really repetitive as well. And your mind sort of goes numb, especially if you're setting up a lot of ads at the same time. I'll show you how you can use campaign ad setup and ad duplication to help you save time, copying and pasting ads and ad sets over. I'll also look at custom columns and saving presets. That's probably going to sound completely boring, but it will make sense when I get there. Yeah, pixel setup as well, which is where I'm going to start. So partner integration is the name of this one. Again, for the beginners, that probably makes no sense, but it will in a second. So a pixel or a tag is essentially the connector between your website and the social media platforms. If you don't have a pixel or a tag, you're most likely wasting your money on the ads on the social media platforms, because your ads or the platform, social media platforms, they aren't really able to learn from what the users are doing, because they don't know what happens after they click on the ads. So if they don't know what they did next, how are they supposed to find people, the strongest audiences, based on their actions? So if you can optimize for awareness, for example, but then again, the people will be completely random. You could optimize for link clicks, but they could essentially just target anyone who just clicks on anything. That could include bots as well. Whereas if you have a pixel, what it's supposed to do is then find the people that are actually quality audiences. So if you're optimizing for them landing page views, then you know they've gone to the website, and hopefully they'll be able to find more people that are spending more time on your site, instead of people that are just bouncing off after a couple of seconds. You can install the pixel in a few different ways, and some of them require developer input, and that can make the process quite time consuming, especially in the sense that you're now not able to do it yourself. You're relying on someone else's time. Developers can be really busy. It's going into their pile of stuff to do, and all of a sudden you're having to wait for someone else to complete the work. But in this section, I'm just going to show you something that some people may not be too aware of, and how easy it actually is, because all you might have seen is partner integration, but it doesn't really ring a bell to you. But essentially, partner integration uses basically Meta. They've created partnerships with a bunch of different platforms. They've worked on this for quite a while, which is quite an important point here, that it's not just something that has just been rushed in. They've worked on this in order to make it an extremely easy process. And essentially, what it helps you do is that you can install the pixel yourself without having someone with a massive analytics background or a developer. So regarding the partners, here's a list of the different partners that are available for partner integration. There are some very common ones that most of you should be familiar with. So we use Google Tag Manager quite a lot for e-commerce clients. You've got the Shopifys and your WooCommerces, but then you've also got the likes of Magneto in there. This is sort of like a bit of a side note. They're also now pushing Meta API integration. I will not go into detail on that, because then it actually does become quite advanced, but they've now started doing partner integration for that as well. You can see the list is compressed into quite a few less there, but just want to keep in mind for the future, because my impression from Meta is that they're really trying to push the Meta API integration, and some of their reps are saying that it's going to become compulsory in the near future. So how do you install the Pixel using partner integration? I'm just going to do a little step-by-step guide essentially. This applies mainly if you don't have a Pixel already set up. That's how the first couple of screens will appear. So essentially you go to your Meta Business Manager and head to Events Manager. Once you've clicked onto there, you'll be presented with a screen like this. Click Connect Data, select Web, and then you enter the name of your Pixel. So something for us, it's something like Annika Digital's Pixel. Once you've done that, you enter your website, and then here we go. This is sort of like a new option here, where they're offering you the option to go for Conversion API and MetaPixel, or MetaPixel only. In this instance, we're sort of going for the MetaPixel only because the API sort of brings on a few different curveballs. And that's when you get the option whether to select to install it manually or check for a partner. So if you're doing it manually, you're most likely just sending the code over to a developer and letting them do it. But if you're doing partner integration, you should be able to do it yourself as long as everything's been set up on the partner side. So if everything's set up correctly in Google Tag Manager or on Shopify or whatever, then it should be a very smooth process. So after you've selected your partner integration, essentially, you click on what partner you want, and it brings up sort of like a 6-step guide where I can't show you all these steps because that requires me to actually install something, so I can actually get the screenshots there. But essentially, it will, if I'm using Google Tag Manager, essentially what will happen is that you go on to, you get a little pop-up, you log into your Google Tag Manager, you just select the account that you already have there, and then essentially you should be able to do this in a few minutes if everything's set up correctly on the Google Tag Manager side. The massive benefits of this as well is that you've got the time saving, you've now eliminated the need of a developer, but it also helps with your conversion setup because the partner integration actually helps pull in events, so you don't have to set them up all individually as well. So especially if you do it through Shopify, for example, it starts to pull in your add to cart data, your purchase data. So they've saved you the task of setting that up from scratch as well, which I find really helpful because, even though I'm an account director, on the analytics side, we have an analytics team and they're really busy. If I can save time having to give them a big task of having to set up all these events individually, that helps me get rolling with the account much sooner. So yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions on that. Matt, give me a shout if anyone does.
No questions at this stage, mate.
Cool. So moving over to duplicating. So duplications, they're a great way on the platforms to save your time from doubling up, tripling up, and quadrupling up on work, because sometimes you're setting up something and the only difference between the individual ads are minor differences. But if you don't know about the copying and pasting and the duplications, and all of a sudden what happens is that you have to start from scratch every time, and there's actually no need for that because you can simply copy and paste and duplicate campaigns, ad sets, ads. In LinkedIn, they're labeled slightly differently. So when we're talking about campaigns in LinkedIn, that's campaign groups. Ad sets in Meta is essentially campaigns in LinkedIn. ad duplication is probably the most common usage of duplications. So using an example, say for example, you want to set an ad live for prospecting. It's a carousel ad. You want it to go out to like an attribution interest target. Carousels, as you know, they've got multiple slides. So you've got upload all the images individually. They might have separate URLs as well. So you have to add all the URLs individually as well. You obviously have the UTM parameters. You set up the primary text, the headlines. Everything needs to be done. So that can take quite a lot of time, and you've got to double check it as well because you don't want any embarrassing errors. So essentially, we're talking about a lot of time there. But now you've added it to your attribution target, but you have a lookalike audience as well, and you want to add the same ad to the lookalike audience. So instead of starting from scratch, what you can do is copy the ads and paste it into the ad set. So you can copy it from your attribution audience into your lookalike audience. What you can also do is that you can select multiple ads and copy them over. You don't have to do them one by one. You just tick the individual ads and paste them over. And you can paste them over to multiple ad sets as well. So you're not limited to just copying over to the one lookalike. You might have two lookalikes that you want added to. So then you just tick the two lookalikes and then click paste. So essentially, this is how you do it on Meta. You tick the ads that you want to copy over, add all ads. Then you go to the drop down next to duplicate, and you'll see the copy option. If you want to duplicate the ads, or if you want a copy of the ad in the same ad set, say for example you want everything to be the same in the ad apart from the image, then you're better off simply duplicating it and then replacing the image. So there are multiple uses here that you can apply. If you want to duplicate it, there's also just a shortcut. If you hover over it and then click duplicate. What you then do is go over to the ad set or ad sets that you want to paste them into. You can see on the left screenshot the paste option isn't available. Now that you've clicked copy, it now appears. Simply click paste there, and then they appear in the ad sets that you ticked. On LinkedIn, it's slightly different. When you're creating the ads, what you'll see is the option to create a new ad or browse existing content. Now, existing content includes previous ads. So say, for example, you've launched ads in one campaign. You want to use the same ads. You want to edit something like slight bits, like the tracking parameters, or maybe you want to change the text slightly. What you do is just browse the content. You tick the ads that you want. What I then do is that if I'm making changes, what I then do is duplicate the ad and then rename it, remove the original, and then make the changes that I want in the new one. So yeah, when on Facebook as well, once you've pasted them into your ad set, that's when you can start making small changes as well. In most cases, you probably want to change some of the UTM tracking so that you can distinguish which is which. So say, for example, if you want the exact same ads, you don't want to make any changes, but you're copying it over from your interest audience to your lookalike audience, you're still likely to probably want to add or change the UTM parameters, which is the tracking code on Facebook. It comes at the bottom. I'll go into it in the future for the people that aren't familiar with tracking parameters. But yeah, essentially, you might want to put in this is coming from the lookalike ad set instead of the interest ad set in your parameters there. One thing that's really important though, when you're copying and pasting ads or duplicating, is that you instead of doing a double check or a triple check, you might want to do like a false check or get an extra person in, just because if you do make an error, that error obviously carries over to all the others. So making one mistake then multiplies the same amount of times as the ads are doing. When it comes to ad set and campaign duplications, there are a few different scenarios where you want to duplicate or copy over ad sets. For example, you might have a full ad set of interest ads. You want to have the exact same ads, but you want to try them for a different audience. That's when you probably want to duplicate an ad set and then just simply change the targeting. Then everything else is set up there, and then you might want to change the UTM parameters as well. But instead of having to set up the ad set from scratch and then setting up all the individual ads all over again, which is extremely time consuming, you're basically making that task. You're saving that will probably take you about 2 minutes to make those changes. And if you were to set it up from scratch, well, you could be talking about hours there, depending on how advanced those ads are as well. I mean, say for example, you're doing collection ads, which is when you have like a creative and then you have the catalog that's at the bottom that opens up into like an internal page. Those ads, they can take a lot of time to build, but yeah, with this you can do it in a matter of minutes. So all of a sudden you've got all this spare time to do other tasks, and you're not sacrificing any quality here either, because you've already set them up in the correct way. You've double, triple checked it. Everything's correct. You're just cutting the time down by being smart. And I use this all the time. And it means that if I want to test some new targeting for the same ads, I can do it in a couple of minutes. It's very simple. Other examples, say you have a campaign and it's a conversion campaign. You might want to do a traffic campaign as well. So you might want to keep everything similar. Maybe you just want to use some of the ads, but then you can just delete them before you publish it. And then you might want to change different objectives. For example, you might want to do add to carts instead of landing page views. But yeah, all these changes, you can make all these minor changes after you duplicated it over, because it's in draft. It doesn't get published straight away. Ad duplication on Meta. As I mentioned earlier, you've got the if you hover over, you can duplicate it in just the one click. As I mentioned in the last slide, you might want to duplicate because you just want to change the audience. Maybe you just want to change the placement. Say, for example, you've launched ads and you want to test how Facebook works compared to Instagram. So you take the one that you're already running on Facebook, and then you duplicate it. You untick all the Facebook placements. You tick all the Instagram placements, and all of a sudden you've got one for each in a matter of a few clicks. What happens as well is sometimes you want to change attribution window. So you can't change that after you've published sometimes. And what you think, your initial thought is, I've got to start from scratch. But with this, you can simply just duplicate it, change your attribution window, and then just delete the one that you might have published by accident with the wrong attribution window. On LinkedIn. Yeah.
Just a quick one, Mail. We've got a couple of questions. I thought I'd stop you there because it's with regards to like Meta, the Meta platform. So Abby's asked, are there any ad types that cannot be edited once duplicated? Because she says that she's tried to duplicate ads before and some won't allow her to edit the images, even though she can edit the other information. Can you think of any reason why that would be?
On Meta, I've not had that before, to be honest. So it sounds a little bit buggy. So what you usually have to do is just delete the image and then upload again. But yeah, I've not come across that in the past. No.
Okay, so maybe if you try deleting the image, Abby, if there's an option to delete it, you might have the option to then re-upload a new one. Failing that, Emil mentions it could be buggy, so maybe it's one for Facebook support. Potentially that could be something that they could help with. And then your second question, Emil, is how often do you recommend changing artwork for a campaign?
Oh, that depends on quite a few different factors, to be fair. Performance is the key one. If you start to see fading performance, then that's obviously a big sign that there is some creative stamina issues coming into place there. Different platforms, they have different lifetimes. For example, TikTok has an extremely short window. What we see on TikTok is that you launch something new and you just have like this fantastic spike, but it very soon drops as well. At Brighton SEO, there was someone talking, and my colleague Rachel, she attended that, and she said that they said on TikTok it's down to 7 days before fatigue hits in, which is obviously an extremely short window. Also depends how much budget you got behind it, because if you got smaller budgets and it's going to take longer for fatigue to kick in, because it's taking you longer to reach the audiences. Look at frequency as well. If your frequency is going above sort of like the 5s regularly, then put yourselves in the shoes of the user. If you're on Instagram and you see this ads, say we're looking at frequency within a 7-day window. If you're seeing the same ad or the same creative 5 times a week, how long does it take you before you get sick of it and you actually start forming a negative association to the brand because you're getting annoyed by it? Whereas if there was a variation to that ad, all of a sudden it's refreshed a little bit. So yeah, those factors are what you need to put into place. It's not like you have to do it after this time. Look at your performance mainly, and then go from there.
Great, thanks, Mel. No more questions at this stage.
Cool. So yeah, on LinkedIn, I showed you how to do the ad duplications, or where you actually have to go into the previous content. When it comes to duplicating campaigns, it's slightly more similar to Facebook. You simply have the three dots next to the campaign as a drop down, click duplicate, and then you'll be able to edit accordingly. It asks you what ads you want to add to it, and then you can change the targeting and the objectives or what you want to do there. It's actually quite common on LinkedIn because LinkedIn doesn't allow you to have different ad formats in one campaign. So, for example, you can't have a campaign with single image, video, and carousel ads, which is extremely annoying because you probably do want to have that, because then you can just have the same campaign budget for all the different assets for whatever project, whatever campaign you're running. But on LinkedIn, you then need to have a single image campaign, a video campaign, a carousel campaign. I'd imagine in the future, they will allow you to have all different ones in one ad set. But then essentially what that means is that if you have single image creative, you have a video, and you have a carousel, you need to have 3 campaigns. So then instead of starting from scratch, what you want to do is duplicate, change the ad format, keep the audience the same, and then you just add the ad at the end. So you're saving yourself time there instead of starting from scratch completely. So that was that for the duplications and the copying and pasting. So now we move on to customizing views and presets. So when we're talking about customizing columns, we're talking about the view when you go on your ads manager and you go to analyze the stats. Essentially, you're looking at all these columns, and Facebook, they have, or all the platforms, they have their own built-in presets, so like the generic ones. But a lot of those aren't particularly useful, or what you might find yourself doing is you're constantly flicking through the different ones in order to see the different stats that you want. So yeah, I do want to have a look at the click data, but I also want to have a look at some of the video view data. I want to see how many people are completing it. I want to see how many purchases. But in order to see all those using Facebook's own ones, you have to keep on flicking through. And yeah, it can just be a bit long-winded when essentially you don't have to do that. And that's what this section is all about. This applies to pretty much all the platforms. So how do you customize? Essentially, you click the little drop down there. So in the previous slide, you can see in the top right there. You go down to customize columns from the drop down, and you'll be presented with basically all the different options available. So what you want to do here is think about what key stats do I always want to have a look at in this view. So then you can select, for example, if you've got an e-commerce client or if you're an e-commerce company, you want to be looking at the e-commerce stats such as purchase data. You want to look at add to carts. You want to look at return on ad spend. But then on top of that, you probably want to look at cost per click. You might want to look at video stats, frequency, for example, because again, that determines how much you can increase the budget or if stamina is going to be kicking in. LinkedIn, as you can see at the bottom, it's essentially the same. When you're in the ads manager, you have the performance drop down, then you can customize columns. And again, it's slightly less in depth on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure this is fairly new as well, because I've not been using it that much in the past. But yeah, essentially it's the same. You just tick the boxes that you want. Now, you've now ticked all these boxes and you've had a look at them, but what's likely to happen is that you want to see these on a regular basis. So instead of having to repeat that process all the time, which again is quite long-winded, you can save these presets. At the bottom left, when you're on there, it shows, if bottom left in the screenshot on the right, say it's save as preset. Essentially, you click that, and then you name it something. So for me, my go-to is key stats. Now, if you go to your columns, it now appears as one of the options. So you can just go on there, click key stats, and you just keep that as your same view. That's my go-to view. That's what I always have open on my clients. Say, for example, you have two e-commerce clients as well. Another time-saving hack is that instead of having to do that all over again, if you just open key stats on the one that you've already set up in your ads manager, move to your other client, it won't be saved there, but it will tell you that you can save the view that's currently on there. So you can just save it again there. And then, you've got the exact same stats without having to set them up from scratch. Another little hack that I found quite useful is when I want to check the URL parameters. So URL parameters they're codes that you add at the end of the URL for tracking purposes. In some cases, you might want to have a look at multiple URLs just to see if, say, for example, you've been in Google Analytics and you've spotted that someone has spelled Facebook wrong in the parameters. They've accidentally typed it in too quickly, and it starts with FCAE. But now you've got to go into Facebook and you need to find which individual ads actually have that error. So instead of having to click onto every single ad, going back, add back, what you can do is using those custom columns from earlier on, you can go in there and you can have a look at all of them listed in one row. So again, go to customize columns, and then you type in URL or parameters or whatever. Tick the box, and then what you see in the bottom right screenshot is that in your view, then you'll just have all of them listed in a row, so you can just go through each individually on that list, and you can select the ads that you spot the error from. So essentially, you can take in all that data just through scrolling down instead of having to go in, out, in, out, in, out. And that can save a lot of time. Another little trick here that essentially, I think it's an error that a lot of people make. Well, it's not an error, but it's just unnecessary work that a lot of people make. And that is, they assume that you have to add the parameters at the end of every single URL. But on Meta, essentially, the URL parameters box at the bottom overrides the others. So if you apply it to that box there, unless you want separate ones, say for example you have a carousel and you want each slide to have different tracking parameters, then you can add them at the end. But if you want just this ad to have the same parameters for all the website links, you just add it in at the bottom, and then by doing that, you're saving yourself from adding it to all the individual ones. So this is what it looks like. It's at the bottom when you're creating the ads at the final stage. Scroll to the bottom, URL parameters. What you add in there overrides the ones further up. You also have a builder there which is really practical. I mean, most people that use Meta know about this builder, but for the ones that are less experienced, you can just type in whatever parameters you want to apply. So saves you from having to actually type in the UTM _ source, blah blah blah, all that stuff. So yeah, again, saves you time there. And yeah, that is it.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, Emil. So has anyone got any questions for us this morning? Oh, there we go. So we've got people that have never used the feature before, which is exciting.
Which feature is that?
Is it Glades? Glades, which feature is that in regards to? I'm assuming it was one of the ones you were discussing near the end, Emil. But yeah, fantastic. I think, in reality, these time-saving tricks, specifically for people that, work in the house as well, they spend tons and tons of time, sometimes, looking at the same campaigns, using similar structures for some of their campaigns. So in reality, these time-saving tricks could be lifesavers, especially when you get to the point where, you're trying to send or you're using different campaigns or different ad sets for every single individual audience that you've got. It can be a huge task, can't it? Have you got any sort of advice on that, Emil? When it comes to the size of budgets and size of business that's running the ads, do you have any advice with regards to how you can keep this sort of tidy as time goes by? I know you manage a few sort of larger e-commerce clients, because it can get a bit messy in there, can't it? So you need to keep tabs on what you've copied. Do you do anything to help yourself track what you've copied and pasted and made sure you've altered them all?
I mean, the naming is key to that. You want to keep the naming as tidy as possible. So yeah, when you copy things over, it adds copy at the end. What you want to do is obviously change it. Say, for example, you've copied an ad set, attribution targeting ad set, and then you've changed the targeting to lookalike. you obviously want to change it in the name there to lookalike, so you know that that is now lookalike. You don't want to name it interests copy when it's a completely different one. With individual ads, in terms of keeping track of what you copied or not, the ads should be named the same anyway. I do that anyway, so you'll know it's that ad from the name.
Fantastic. Okay, so we do have a couple more questions as well. So Sarah has asked or said that she doesn't currently use tracking parameters, but runs plenty of ads for the company. So how does she get started with that? Have you got any sort of tips and tricks with regards to getting started with UTM parameters?
I think a really important thing when you get started is to create a template so that it's consistent across everything. We get a lot of analytics, new analytics clients where it's just a complete mess because there have been different people working on different accounts and people are using different formats. So what we then tend to do is just get everything unified. So you set the format. For example, what I put in place at Annika for social media is that you have everything is lowercase. So there's no confusion there in terms of uppercase and lowercase. So that eliminates one potential stumbling block where people could be using something different. Then we have the social platform. So Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok as a source. And then we have the medium as either paid or organic. So with one word, again, as simple as it can get. Basically, you want to make it foolproof and you want to make it so that the next person, it's very easy to explain to them, this is the format, please try to follow it. That's the most important thing on that side. I would recommend using it as well because it's going to give you a lot more vision of, if you go to analytics, it will give you more vision of where people are coming from and what actions those people are taking on your sites, because there's always two sides to a story when it comes to attribution. You've got Facebook ads telling you one thing and you'll have Google Analytics telling you one thing. Neither of them are right because the right answer is somewhere in the middle. But if you have both sides of the story, at least you get a better view of what's actually occurring.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about piecing the information together, isn't it? And I suppose in every instance, the more tracking you can utilize, the better story you can build, can't you? You know, I suppose on analytics, you can sort of, let's not use the phrase follow your users around, but you can work out what the user journeys were like and sort of what they viewed. And you can look at things like simple things like bounce rate and start to understand whether people have found the page content useful after clicking that LinkedIn ad or that Facebook ad. So I have actually, Sarah, hopefully you'll be able to see it in the chat. I've just posted a link to GA DevTools, which is a campaign URL builder. So in terms of sort of tips and tricks for building or getting started with URL parameters, this particular tool lets you add the URL that you're looking to send people to, but then also add a campaign source, a campaign medium, and a few other bits as well. So it helps you make sure that you're structuring that tracking URL correctly for use with Google Analytics. So hopefully that's helpful. And then the other question from Sarah as well is that they currently use Zapier to link their Facebook ads back to two different databases. So they are tracking in some way already, but she's asking, can she add additional tracking and would it help?
Without knowing exactly what's set up, it sounds like the API side of things is probably going to be quite useful for you. Obviously, they've got the partner integration there. That is more advanced than just a simple pixel integration. But yeah, I would definitely look into the API just to see. It might already be installed, but yeah, just have a look and see.
Fantastic. And then Bryony has asked, she said she's used GA DevTools. Ironically, you're one step ahead of me there, Bryony. So nice one. So she uses that to create the links for her Facebook ads. She said, should she be using meta parameters only?
I mean, they are the same. They come out in the same format anyway. So because what you're doing, I'm assuming you copy and paste over the parameters. So yeah, either or. The Facebook Builder tool basically does the same thing. It's just if you want to do it on Facebook, do it on Facebook. It's all about preference, really. I can also see Sachin is asking about UTM parameters without GA. Yeah, when we're talking about parameters, it's not limited just to GA. You track it across. And when it comes to lead ads on the instant form, obviously, if they're filling in the form, you're getting the data straight from Facebook, but you might have a link there to go for more information or something. Definitely add parameters after that. Any links, add UTM parameters at the end of them.
Yeah, and just to add to what Emil said for Sachin, so when it comes to parameters, different platforms use different types of parameter as well. So the ones we've talked about today are very, very useful for Google Analytics, and it helps Google Analytics understand a little bit more about the users that have come to the site via Facebook. But there are platforms that people might use, like HubSpot, for example. Now, HubSpot has its own information with regards to URL parameters, and it helps you potentially track leads directly in the HubSpot platform that have come from Facebook, for example. So yeah, it's well worth looking at if you have different tracking platform as opposed to Google Analytics. Definitely look into what options are available for parameters on that individual platform.
Yeah, it's the same with Adobe. Adobe, they have a different format. You just need to research what the format is, but essentially you want to pull through similar information just in those different formats. I know when clients they use Magneto, for example, they have a format where the campaign side of things is coded, so you get an individual code for each campaign. So yeah, they do vary slightly. In this case, we're talking about what's optimized for Google Analytics, but ad tracking to links regardless, just in the right format.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's what's key, isn't it? And like you said earlier, Emil, making sure that you've got a standardized format, because what can end up happening is, you're tracking sort of spirals out of control a little bit. You've got loads of different campaigns that should have been the same name if you've got a similar campaign, but different ad sets or different ads. So it can get messy. So I think, making sure it's consistent is definitely key, isn't it?
Yeah. And then I think Sachin has answered Helen's question about checking for the pixel. But beyond that, you'll probably want to have a look. Once you see that they have a pixel, you just want to have a look if it's actually set up properly, because you could have a pixel, but you might not have any events set up, and then you sort of you got the pixel there, but it's not actually doing anything.
Yeah, that's it. It's kind of double layer, isn't it? Having the pixel set up and then not tracking any particular instances of things on the website. It's definitely not going to make much difference, is it, at the end of the day? So in terms of, and obviously, if anyone needs any help with any of their tracking, any of their meta integrations, anything like that, the team at Anika here, they're very, very well versed in all of that. So if anyone needs any help, definitely feel free to get in touch with myself or Emil. Emil, I don't know if you want to pop our email addresses into the chat for me. That would be awesome. And feel free to get directly in touch with us. So finally, guys, if you have enjoyed today's webinar, it would be absolutely fantastic if you could leave a review for us, which you should see pop up on your screen right now. So that'll be the reviews.io platform that link will take you to. And if you want to name drop Emil, if you think his contribution today, his webinar today on time saving tricks to be more productive on Meta and LinkedIn platforms, or any other social platforms in reality, then yeah, definitely leave a review for him, and that would be greatly appreciated. It's always nice to hear feedback from everyone who's joined us on these webinars. But in terms of the webinar for this morning, that is everything today. So I don't think there's any more questions. I hope everyone has enjoyed the webinar, and we hope to see you all again next week. Thanks, everyone. Cheers, Emil.
Take care.